You to the next speakers, and we're going to talk with Chris Engle and with Patrick Kongsilp. And Patrick is Director of Revenue Management from Amtrak, and Chris is Chief Customer Officer from Plusgrade. And you're going to talk about 1 year experience in researching.
That's right.
Well, go ahead. The floor is yours.
What's a forward on this?
The green one.
That makes sense.
And
Great.
please stand before the chairs.
Okay, awesome. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. Thanks for being here this morning. I'm Chris Engle with Plusgrade.
And I'm Pat Kongsilp from Amtrak.
We're going to talk a little bit today about the journey that Plusgrade and Amtrak have been on in introducing ancillaries and upgrades into the Amtrak environment. We've had an incredible year. We'd like to talk a little bit about some of the learnings that we've had, as well as some of the challenges and what the roadmap was like and where we're headed in the future. So first, just a little bit about Amtrak and Plusgrade.
So Amtrak has 12.2 million people or ridership in fiscal year 2021 and revenues of around 2 billion euros. We have multiple services such as overnight trains between major cities such as Chicago and Los Angeles, 3 days, 2 nights, as well as car service, or also known as the auto train from Washington, D.C. to Orlando, Florida. In addition to sleeper accommodations and coach class accommodations, you have to take your vehicle with you. So it's a little bit different from the traditional overnight trains. It's similar to the night jet with those multiple options. Also, we have the Acela and Northeast Corridor, which is similar to the Thales and Eurostar, taking you between New York City and Washington, D.C., around 2.5 to 3 hours. So the key takeaway from this is that we have a lot of ridership and revenue in the national network, but spread out across different business lines and business types.
I was a little disappointed on this slide that my favorite Amtrak train, if any of you are looking for what I believe is the most beautiful trip on Amtrak, which is up and down the West Coast, Amtrak has a really special train it's about 36 hours, I think, between Seattle and Los Angeles, and it hugs the coast. It has viewliners and a movie theater and a wine bar. It's a pretty incredible experience. So if any of you ever really want to see the redwood forests and all of those beautiful things on the West Coast, I think we should add it to the slide next time.
Yeah, but feel free, though, to use your phone to take a QR code, look at Amtrak.com, and look at the Coast Starlight and make a booking.
There you go. Great, and just a little bit about us at Plusgrade. We are the world leader in ancillary merchandising in the travel industry. About 11 million passengers upgraded. Interestingly, we just crossed the 10 million mark just earlier this summer, so our growth has really accelerated. About $8 billion in revenue, in ancillary revenue, we've brought to our travel community. The partners that work with us tend to stay with us forever, about a 70 NPS, and we tend to be the number 1 or the number 2 source of ancillary revenue for the partners that we work with. And just really briefly, who that is, we currently have 140 brands in the Plusgrade family. These are launched partners only. Like, we're in the process of implementing right now with Eurostar, so their logo's not up there yet, but hopefully in the next few months they'll be there. Amtrak has a prominent place, and we have about 24 brands in the EU currently that we're working with in the travel industry. And really our mission is really to help to enable our partners to develop deeper, stronger relationships with their customers. So Plusgrade is an enabling platform. Our underlying business philosophy is to support partners like Amtrak, not only in driving revenue, but in creating closer customer connections for their business and for their guests. Okay? Do you want to start this one and talk a little bit about the program, and then I can sort of overlay as well?
Sure.
Okay.
So we started this program as Amtrak partnered with Plusgrade in 2021. So it was not an overnight plug and play. So it was a phased approach where we started out with that Northeast Regional or Acela service that goes between Washington, D.C., New York, and Boston, also known as the Northeast Corridor. So that is the traditional seat. There were no sleepers and no other upgrade availability throughout the rest of the network. As we learned, both in terms of system operations, technical operations, business operations, along with getting feedback from other groups in Amtrak, like corporate communications, government relations, we tweaked and made adjustments to the program, and then we added sleepers and long-haul trains later.
What's interesting about the Amtrak network is that the way Amtrak sells and services the Northeast Corridor, which is their really high-density markets, is different than the sleepers and the long-haul trains. I think there's consolidation going on in terms of how you operate your network, but it was really a fun approach to take the Northeast dense, high-speed commercial business traffic first, and then apply some of those learnings to trains that sometimes are 4 or 5 day trips across the United States.
So there's a lot of integration that goes on. There's a schedule, the passenger list, the reservation, as well as the customer touch points, as well as the processing, should the upgrades be granted, if it goes above or below a threshold, as well as communication to the customer itself. So there's a lot of connection and interaction involved to get this program and system up in place, but once it's going, it is rather pretty smooth.
One of the things I can add on that too is, in my experience of 6 years with Plusgrade, the only thing worse than not being upgraded is thinking you've been upgraded and not getting your upgrade. So these integrations were really critical for us with the Amtrak team in terms of ensuring not only that the business rules that define the upgrade offer, so looking at what are the load factors, what are the pricing parameters, what's the mix, and then also what's the guest's history, right? You can look at the ability to say, have they been upgraded frequently? Have they never been upgraded? What's their loyalty status? What's their form of payment? Any sort of signals you want to apply to the business rules. And working with Amtrak, we basically came to Amtrak and said, here's our recommendations. Ultimately, all of our programs are driven by the business decisions of the provider. So in the case of Amtrak, when we went through this process of ensuring we had a super well-integrated ancillary offer, we were able to establish those business rules. And especially with Pat's team, with revenue management, with analytics and stuff. So it was a great sort of it's a relatively fast process. I think overall, we spent about 3 or 4 months on the initial build, but we really needed to make sure we got it right for Amtrak.
So in terms of getting it right, this is a customer-facing, customer retailing experience. So the interaction is defined by the business and how the customers see it. So the touch points and how the customer sees it is done by the business unit, such as emails. When can customers actually make the bids? How often should they be contacted? Is it available on the website? Is it available on the mobile app? Should it be pushed, or should the customer take the initiative? Those are the business decisions that need to be made by the customer, the business unit itself, and telling Plusgrade how the customer would like to see it, as well as getting confirmation and assurance enough, but not too much that the customer's overwhelmed. The fulfillment process is also client or business driven. For us, we have roughly 36 hours to process the upgrades prior to departure for the sleeper accommodation, but then for the corridors or those short haul experiences or services, such as going from Washington to New York, a 3-hour trip, we will process that 1 hour or 2 hours prior to departure to allow the close-in bookings to come in before fulfilling the upgrade bidding.
And I think what's classic about the 36 hours is that's not a function of the e-commerce engagement. It's a function of the fact that these trains will leave, say, New York City and head to Los Angeles, and that journey is 3 or 4 days, roughly, longer, maybe 4 days?
3 days.
3 days. So you need to provision the trains in advance for somebody who may upgrade at a certain point along the way. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we're working on to, as an Amtrak process to make sure that we can upgrade closer to departure, but that upgrade for the long haul service is based on the business needs of Amtrak to make sure that they have the cabins provisioned properly for the guests that have been upgraded into the sleepers.
So this program is evolving, so there are things that we have learned. So in 2022, we have implemented what we call the abandoned offer and the fallback. So people take surveys, people make purchases, but not always at the initial point that they're contacted. Sometimes they will come back to it to purchase, make a booking, or fulfill the offer. So we have implemented the abandoned offer feature where if people are making bids and they stop midway, at a certain point in time, there's a follow-up saying, would you like to continue with the process to place your bids? So that resulted in more people participating in the program, getting their upgrades, and of course, being more content with the experience on board. And the other program or enhancements that we implemented is the fallback offer, where people can bid for multiple options so that they're not just stuck with one offer, but they have different chances to upgrade besides the one that they really want.
And here's some visuals. I know Pat showed this the other day as well. And we'll talk a little bit about how these work in the overall journey and mix, but Amtrak has really leaned into the program in terms of making various touch points available for passengers to engage with the upgrade process, either through the app or managed by booking or other sorts of places. So it's been fun to work with them on a brand specific engagement on Amtrak. And we really look at sort of the reach engagement, the merchandising, and then the offer and fulfill. And so these are just examples of that. So here's where we get to what are some sort of key data points that we've learned in our journey together over the last year. And I'll start. First is that rail guests engage at incredibly high rates. Amtrak was about I think it's either 87th or 88th implementation of upgrade programs around the world. And stunningly and excitingly, the offer process, the engagement by rail passengers is about 3x of our airline community. So there's incredible interest in upgraded experiences on a rail journey.
So the solution here that Amtrak has is in conjunction with Plusgrade. However, from a customer perspective, they are not aware that this is actually processed and run by a vendor behind the scenes. So the important thing that we learned here is that customers want to know that they are still engaging with Amtrak and that the processing and analysis and the tools behind the scenes are really behind the scenes, and that the perception of the customer is always that they're working with the Amtrak brand. So it still feels to them that they are having a direct relationship with Amtrak and that they have that trust.
Guest engagement is super high close to departure. One thing that Amtrak invested in at launch was a collaboration in the Amtrak app, which is a very robust app in the US and is quite heavily used by rail passengers. And there's digital reach strategy that includes things like push notifications that allow engagement for an upgraded experiences, not only on the day of departure, but even it could be on their way to the station. And the digital reach strategy for Amtrak has been very specific and different than some of our airline partners, like very different than how Lufthansa and Swissair engage with their guests through us. But to support that within 24-hour upgrade option is absolutely key.
So as mentioned earlier, Amtrak has a diverse network with a combination of, say, Nightjet, Thales, and some Finnish overnight rails. So we have a plethora of services. And the upgrade or the bidding for upgrade or bid up program has performed really well across our major areas. So this is not just restricted to a specific rail type service or rail experience?
We believe that the ability to launch, to measure, and to iterate are key. It's a very data-driven implementation that we did with Amtrak. And we really decided up front that we would, other than making sure that fulfillment was absolutely flawless to prevent someone not receiving the upgrade that they're entitled to, we really took this approach that we needed to get something in the marketplace, iterate, measure, and improve. And so for us, that recommendation really is to not expect every touch point to be live at launch, to keep it simple, to measure, and to evolve.
So the upgrade program needs to be integrated with our revenue management practices and CRM. It cannot be done in isolation. There has to be a lot of cross-functional collaboration with corporate communications, customer relations, marketing, loyalty, so that we can create the best customer experience as well as maximize the incremental revenue possibilities.
Well-targeted upgrades are an amazing way to experience product trial. One of the sort of fun things we're working on is, what we've found is that guests who are disposed to providing offers for upgraded experiences, once they try that upgraded experience, they have a pretty high rate of purchasing that upgraded cabin or class or seating option next time at time of purchase. So it's the best for some of our airlines, even Singapore Airlines with their business class. The Plusgrade solution has the highest rate of repurchase into that higher cabin, to that elevated experience at the next time they book than any other method they use for product sampling or product trial. So with Amtrak, for instance, Amtrak's launching a whole new fleet of Acela trains in the Northeast. We're really already in planning, talking about how we're going to expose those new services to passengers who aren't maybe necessarily normally Acela passengers, with the understanding that maybe they use the upgrade platform the first time and then they just start booking that cabin from subsequent times that they travel in the Northeast Corridor.
And working with Plusgrade, the integration focuses having the processing and parsing of the offers done on the vendor side. So that allows Amtrak to focus more on the business side, on analytics, dashboards, reporting to executive management, making the pricing decisions and inventory managed decisions in the home base, while allowing Plusgrade to deal and manage through the day-to-day technical, the processing, the reporting out of the raw data for Amtrak to consume. So the daily maintenance does not occur on the client or the business side, but occurs on the vendor side.
What's next? As we sort of alluded to earlier, we've got some ideas around alternate departures that we'll be implementing in Amtrak's environment, last-minute sleeper upgrades. Loyalty is a powerful currency for upgrades. Plusgrade is also has points.com, or points is in our family, so we'll be sort of leveraging the loyalty options for Amtrak guests. And then integration into Amtrak's next generation inventory and revenue management systems, product trials, and above all else, I'm absolutely convinced that 2023 will be a year of big growth for us as we continue.
So I want to bring in some of the comments that actually people here in this audience mentioned the past few days, as well as the speakers. Metaverse, customer perception, customer experience. There's the Homer versus the Spock. This program, this experience is fun. It's like gamification. Are you granted the upgrade? Are you not? Will I get it? There is an interaction. There's this metaverse type relationship all occurring either on your phone or on your laptop. So this program, these concepts all tie in with what has been discussed throughout the past 3 days.
It's been great. It's been an incredible year. We're excited to be here this year. We'll see you next year in Vienna as well with some other great stories of things we're working with others in this community in the room today. So thanks, and we'll see you on board.
Big round of applause.